Hey, what's going on, good people? So for this little tidbit Tuesday, I want to talk about the single most important reason that people who choose to invest in real estate over every other investment option that is out there. Now, the single most reason that people choose to invest in real estate over all other investments is for the cash flow. Another reason is equity capture. We'll talk about that later. Tax advantages. We'll talk about that later. Forced appreciation. We can talk about that later. The tax advantages. We can talk about that later. But just for, 90 seconds or so, I want to talk about cash flow, because if you don't have an understanding of cash flow, then coming out the gate, you're at a disadvantage for investing in any type of investment. Cash flow is as simple as this. Let's say you walk outside of your house and some unfortunate incident happens to you, right? Will your money continue to come in the house? Will the amount of money that's coming into your house right now continue to come in if you're doing absolutely nothing? That's what cash flow is. Unfortunately, we hear about professional athletes, they may make $120 million over a career, and then shortly thereafter they go bust. Well, no one ever talked to them, or they never took the time to understand about cash flow. If you make $120 million in a career, do you know how many apartment complexes that person could purchase? And then once they retired from the league, or basically when no one else wanted them anymore, didn't want to hire their services, they will continue to have money coming in every single month if they did nothing, because people are always going to need a place to live. The apartment industry, single family housing, rental industry is going nowhere. A friend of mine who is in financial services called me one day. He said, "Mike, I have a great deal for you. It will pay you 5% return on your money." So if I would have invested $100,000 with this guy, basically what he's saying is at the end of 12 months, I would get $5,000, or I would have earned $5,000 before taxes, because after the tax man cometh, especially with capital gains taxes, he's probably going to take upwards or up to another 30%, right? Well, that's not attractive to me, right? Because with real estate, I know what it's like to purchase a home, fix it up, rent it out, get checks on that one property that comes in every single month, regardless of whether or not I do something to it, I get paid on it. And then I make way more. And that's just the cash on cash return, right? Now, I don't want to really go off into numbers because I don't want to lose anybody. But I'll do another segment where I actually show numbers on the screen, right? But, let's say I spent $100,000 on a house to purchase a house. Well, first of all, I'm not going to pay $100,000 cash like I would purchasing stock, because I can use the benefit of leverage. Purchasing a house that costs $100,000, if I paid $100,000 for the house, I'm only going to put up 10 to 15% of that. So I'm only going to put down 10 to 15%. Well, the other thing is equity capture. If I'm going to buy a house that's worth $100,000, I'm going to pay $50,000 or $60,000 for the house. It's probably going to be a foreclosure. It's probably going to need $10,000, maybe $15,000 worth of work. So if I buy the house, if I'm actually paying for the house $60,000, and I'm putting another 15,000 in the house, all in, I'm paying $75,000 for the house, right? Well, if I'm only putting down 10%, I'm putting down $7,500. That's what I'm putting out of pocket, but I'm controlling a $100,000 asset. Well, the bank puts up the rest of the money. I rent it out. Every time I get a check from that rent, I pinch off a little bit to pay the mortgage. I pinch off a little bit to pay the taxes. I pinch off a little bit to pay the insurance. I put the rest in my pocket. That's how cash flow works. So I don't want to go into equity capture, but I did want to say, just for this tidbit, if you never understood cash flow, you have to start there if you're going to become an investor, a wise investor, right? And then let's face it, with the stock market, you may not make 5% return on your money. It's possible, but it's also possible to lose. And there are far more losers in the stock market than there are winners. So the greatest book I could recommend for anybody to start out understanding real estate investing, it's the best book in the world next to the Bible. And that's going to be Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I never heard of Robert prior to hearing to Robert Kiyosaki. I just knew he came to this particular conference. I heard his name a couple of times, but no one told me that Rich Dad, Poor Dad was really the autobiography of Robert Kiyosaki. And he's telling the story of the lessons he's learned from who he calls his rich dad, which was not his biological father, and his poor dad, who was his biological father. But by the time you read that, your mind will be so transformed, you'll begin to see through all of the crap that comes across TV, you know, telling you to follow the line or stay on the line and all of these other types of so-called investments that they're trying to sell you. So hopefully you'll subscribe to the page if you like the information. If not, I understand. There's a lot of other information out there. Keep it moving. On the website, michaeldwebb.com, you can log on there. Subscribe to the newsletter so you can get information first, or make sure it comes to your inbox. But like I said, if it's not valuable to you, you can always remove yourself from the newsletter or just delete it. So hey, hopefully this little tidbit will open up your eyes. Remember, cash flow is king. It's important, So I just heard Robert Kiyosaki on an interview. The guy was trying to be funny, taking a jab at him, and asked him, well, how is your real estate doing? And Robert Kiyosaki said, well, I own multiple businesses, but my real estate after expenses, I'm making $1 million a month. That's a great goal to set, $1 million a month right there. But start with the little things. If you're living on, it costs you $4,000 a month to live. That's a great goal to set right there as well, because as soon as you start making $4,000 a month from your real estate investments, you're totally out of the rat race. You're totally financially free. So, again, hopefully this tidbit helped. Let me close with this. Happy Thanksgiving and go Cowboys.